Miami, 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 Miami. It feels like Miami.
Welcome to the Heat Beat Podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, and with me today, alumni, pun master, the GOAT, the Dunker Spot's own, Nekias Duncan.
Hello, friend. Glad to be back. Happy to be back. Heat dub. Heat dub. The series doesn't end on yeah.
It's a series doesn't start till the road team wins, and we have a series.
There we go.
As they say, Nekias, I know today's gonna be a heavy basketball focused podcast. We're gonna get into the nitty gritty, but give me 1 second to ask this question, and okay. I want your perspective as one of the smartest people who I think are covering the sport. Is this the most impressive win in the history of the franchise, given opponent, given expectation, given shorthandedness, given what happened in game one? Because I came away with that being like, I have never been more impressed with a Miami Heat win in my life. And again, this is a team that has won games in the finals. I mean, they won a game in the finals with Jimmy hobbled against that behemoth of Denver's offense and all that. So I just kind of want your quick thoughts on that, because it was really, I just want to stew in this, because that's a big organizational win that they got yesterday.
That's huge. Like, it's because of what you said. Like, we've seen the Heat in the finals and they pulled off some unbelievable things. Like, look no further than the game 6 in 2013, where that just should have been over.
Yeah.
And they were able to pull that. Like, it's hard for me to go to most impressive because I've seen the finals history and I've got to live through that. But it's up there, especially when I don't want to anger the Heat fans. Listen to this. When you think about how good Boston has been all year long, and how historically good this Boston team was in the regular season, to lose game one to that degree and to bounce back and not only win, but to win by double digits, and to not only win by double digits, you held this Boston offense to 101 points. Like, I know we've gone more to offensive rating, defensive. Yeah, like you did, and did it without, I guess, arguably at this point, but did it arguably without your best player.
I mean, best player, best perimeter defender, probably their best help defender, depending on how you feel about Jimmy versus Bam there. I mean, like that, the size that you lose.
Yeah, but it is insane. Like, again, because it's first round stakes, and because Miami was kind of entering this series with the house money feel to them, because Jimmy was already out, that's where I can't get too impressive, because I don't think the pressure's on them internally because of how long this group has been together, offseason questions, all that good stuff. But in terms of realistic chance of winning the series, like, I don't think the same pressure has been there compared to some of the final series, some of the conference final series and comebacks we've seen there. So I can't get to number one, but it's certainly up there. And it was one of the more fun wins I had the pleasure of watching.
And like, it might not even be the most impressive win in that building. I mean, LeBron goes in game 6. I mean, Jimmy and Lowry go in game 6, with their back against the wall in 22 to force that game 7 when really they were kind of left for dead and Jimmy was coming back from injury. But I don't know, that's kind of why we watched sports last night. I'm sure that the organization is obsessed with the win like that. That is the most Heat culture propaganda thing that they could have ever asked for. So I wanted to give that quick shout out. We're going to welcome in our third co-host for the day. Siobhan, welcome. How you doing? Can you hear us? Can you give us a thumbs up if she can hear us? Okay, she may not hear us yet. So when she gets her mic and audio going, we'll kind of get in to that with Bond. Nekias, let's break this game down. We have a lot to get to, and I think most importantly, how Miami changed their defensive coverage from game 1 to game 2. In game 1, we saw some zone that did not work. We saw Miami early doubling, particularly Tatum, and how Boston picked that apart with Tatum's playmaking. And I tweeted out during game 1 on Sunday, I said a bellwether for Miami's success in defending Boston are going to be Jason Tatum's assist numbers And game 1, he had 3 turnovers, 10 assists. Game 2, I believe it was 3 turnovers, 3 assists. And that's the winning formula if you're Miami. They kind of guarded their yard, did more single coverage. There was a lot more switching. Nekias, it was really a total flip on what they did game 1, and it worked to a T.
Yeah, I loved it. Like the first thing you notice is right after the jump ball, Boston has it. Here's Bam picking up Jason Tatum. It's like, wait a minute. That's different. This is interesting. More interesting than different because we saw in the second play-in game, Bam taking on the DeMar DeRozan assignment, and that made some sense. You want to put your best guy on their best guy, and because DeMar isn't a three-point threat, you're fine with if there is a ball screen coming, Bam can just kind of duck under and navigate from there and contest the tough jumpers. If DeMar makes them, he makes them because he's good, but ultimately you're not putting 2 on the ball. You're not being threatened behind the three-point line. Jason Tatum poses a different problem for you, and so my first thought was, I like this conceptually, or just the basketball fan in me. Bam's picking up Jason Tatum. This is the most versatile defender in basketball, in my opinion, in Bam Adebayo. Of course, he's going to take on this challenging game too. What exactly is going to happen when a screen comes, though? If this is just going to be a switch and Tatum's just going to pick at different matchups anyway, what does this mean? But there is multiple. I mean, you got secondary effects to that, though. One, if you have Jovic on Kristaps on top of that, we can just turn the Tatum Kristaps pick and roll into a switch. And so you can at least take that off the board. And something that Steve brought up, or that I talked about with Steve on the pod we recorded earlier today, that'll be out tomorrow, is that with Bam on Jason Tatum, you can, in theory, eliminate some of those elbow catches that we saw in game 1. Tatum can't establish deep positioning against Bam the way he may be able to do so against a Caleb Martin or against a Haywood Highsmith or against a Tyler Herro if he's poking in matchups. So taking that off the board, turning the potential Tatum Kristaps pick and roll to a switch, I think did played a part in slowing down Boston's offense. And then, as you mentioned, they did not show help as aggressively as they did. Just like Bam got the Tatum assignment, you saw Tyler Herro and Jaylen Brown, which on the surface seems like a bad idea and something to worry about. But if Tyler Herro can just stay in front and Jaylen Brown just has to take these tough middies over him, he's good enough to make those shots. But if you're trying to keep yourself out of rotation, you're trying to limit ultimately the amount of threes that Boston can get up, it can serve as a little bit of bait. Like, okay, have fun against Tyler. Tyler, all we need you to do is not foul, stay in front, and put your arms up. And he largely did that. And so if you get that, you don't have Tatum creating the same advantages. You don't have Jaylen Brown creating the same advantages. That's what I think got lost with the three-point thing. 2 things. One, the Heat didn't just win because of threes. That was a large factor, but it ignores all the things they did differently defensively. But 2, because of what they did defensively and how they guarded it, how they limited some of the help they were showing, Miami didn't just make more threes than Boston. They took 11 more threes than Boston. That's the key there. If you can limit Boston to, 32 three-point attempts, that's not Boston basketball. That hasn't been Boston basketball all year long. It's not impossible for them to win games like that, but that's ultimately not how they want to get it done. So Miami being able to limit the attempts on top of we're more comfortable taking these shots. If you're going to help off Caleb, he's taking them in rhythm. If you're helping off of Jaime, he's taking them in rhythm. If you're helping off of Haywood Highsmith, he's taking them in rhythm. You have those things together, and you get a pretty darn good game plan for Miami. And you get the ridiculous shooting on top of that. That's how you get the victory.
We welcome in Bon. Hi, Bon. How you doing? Can you hear
the
us?
legend?
Stop it. Hello, people. Yes, that was stressful. I'm good now.
She's good, and she's right on time because really, we just started. We did a little narrative talk at the beginning, and you're in here for the good nitty-gritty basketball talk. Nekias and I were just talking about the adjustments Miami made defensively, and we kind of went over that a little bit. One of the things that I really liked is the non-aggressive help that they showed. It was more of shading if Jason Tatum or Kristaps Porzingis catches the ball at the nail or they get position. Miami's not full committing to a double. Whoever's on the wing is pinching in, making sure that player, that person with the ball is seeing bodies, but not a full double, so they can't just start flinging the ball. And the really thing that killed Miami was that one pass away. It was the swing pass. It was the guy gets it, and then that rotation comes, and that swing to the corner or the wing, whether that's Hauser, whether that's Jaylen Brown, any of those guys. And I thought Miami did fantastic, even when they gave up switches, like Nekias says. So Tyler Herro's on him. We are not going to hard double you. We're not going to treat you like Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
And it was successful. And that really was, I think, the first most obvious card that Miami had, but I think one of the most potent cards.
No, I fully agree. And it's kind of, first of all, hi, Nekias.
Hello.
Been a minute. Hello, G. It's been a little bit of a minute too. Hi, people. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like from the Miami teams of old, when it was the heavy Bam switch out types of things. What accompanied that for me at least was also this like hate that we would just constantly, just commit to the double in like pinch post, extended post situations. Like you have a guy there, you don't need to, and then like you said, you're forced to play catch up, and they like bank on themselves to be able to like rotate out of the first pass and catch up by the time it swings all the way around kind of to the opposite corner. And they bank on it a lot, and sometimes it's successful, sometimes it isn't. I don't think Boston, is a team that you give steady doses of that. To Nekias' point, you're enabling, 3-point attempts. You're giving them volume by, giving them clear openings, to get the ball out and kind of move it around. So I agree with you. I loved what they did last night. I mean, it was kind of, Nekias had a tweet earlier that was like, friends, this isn't the zone, and it wasn't, but it was really, really great, like gapping principles. If the ball's in the middle of the floor, whoever is one pass away from either side is splitting, the ball in theirs. And that's just how it's starting. It's not like a pre-rotating. They're beginning in kind of that formation. And the same thing. It went to Jason Tatum a bunch on the post, and we're not crashing down. You're just splitting between him and that first pass. And then it allows everything else to be, it allows you to dictate a bit more. And you don't open up the threes, and then you don't open up driving lanes as easily on, hard closeouts and over rotating, and now you're getting blown by. I thought it was, like you said, it was one of the most immediately noticeable things that they did different. There were others, but I think that set the tone for everything that they were able to kind of build off of it from there.
And I thought that guys just had good individual defense. I thought Jovic in particular, and I highlighted this after game one, stayed in front of guys, stayed in front of Holiday, stayed in front of Jalen, stayed in front of guys. The fronting on Porzingis, I thought Miami, when the small guys were on him, aggressive and ready for the slip every time, because that's what you're trying to do, right? They're fronting you over, you empty the strong side corner, and you're slipping. And Miami's ready. That guy on the weak side corner, whether that's Tyler, whether that's Highsmith, whoever makes that rotation, they're there. And whether it's Caleb or Nico, they're getting in front of that pass to the slip man. And Jovic got a turnover, I think, in the third quarter off that. And they just had they played Miami Heat basketball, not to like super cliche it, but this was so peak Eric Spoelstra. I think I tweeted death, taxes, and Heat fronting, in an Eric Spoelstra team. And it's just all those little things that in game one, I don't even know, Nekias, I don't understand why the game plan off the rip was, we're going to double Jason Tatum, because they tried that last year and they adjusted rather quickly to just putting Horford next to him and having that little release valve pass. And Miami went to it again. I understand why they went to zone, and we'll talk about their zone in a second. But was there a reason? I don't think that they go back to that for the rest of the series.
I doubt we see it in the rest of the series. Like, I think it's just a general, let's force it out of his hands and let's see what these other guys can do. Because I do think the decision making for Jaylen Brown is better, but it can be inconsistent. Drew Holiday, as Buck fans will tell you, the decision making can be very inconsistent when he's in the open floor. Kristaps Porzingis has got better on the short roll, but like you can kind of test that out a little bit. You don't really want to do that to Derek White, because he just nails what he's supposed to do when he gets it in those situations. But I can understand, smart, like, let's not let Jason Tatum get comfortable. Let's get it out of his hands. Let's make somebody else make a decision. But to your point, Tatum diced it up pretty quickly. And even when we got to some of the zone possessions, and he's seeking out dunking at the edge of the zone, and now you're drawing two there. Just like, well, what exactly do you want the defense to do at this point? This is kind of tough.
Can I add something there?
Yes,
I think it's so fun. I tweeted this earlier. Like, I think that's the magic of like a playoff, of a series. I think Miami is a team who's very comfortable like giving up a game, and it'll probably be an ugly game, but they're I feel, or at least this is how it reads to me, like being comfortable giving up maybe an early game, trying to test just how much of their core season throughout the season principles hold up, what they know that they can kind of get away with. And then come game two, we're cool to adjust. Like, we know we have the defensive versatility, we have the defensive mind at the helm to do different things. So what's the harm? And let's just go out first game, not that flippant, But let's see if the things that we've been doing, if we can do them and do them effectively. If not, okay, cool. We switch it up, and then even in our switch up, we're still dictating that Boston must then switch, and then can we then be ready for that? So I don't know if it's a cognitive approach, but I feel like it works for them. To your point, why are we just going into doubling Jason? We've seen it not work.
Yeah, it was like, wow. And in the regular season, they did try the switching, and they got that was like the first game that they really went back to it, and they got absolutely shredded. I think that game and then the New York game soon after, to the point that I was like, is this over? I was at a 5 Reasons watch party. Like, are we done? Ethan?
Oh, man.
Ethan?
This it?
Is this how it is? Let's talk about their zone, because they went to it for a little bit and it didn't look great. I thought one of the things Boston did against it that was interesting this game was Miami, when they kind of go from that press and sink into their zone. Boston was pushing, and they got a couple looks out of the corner, which I thought were like really good. And just in general, Tatum split a double, and Kevin Love, poor Kevin Love, lone man on the back line, just really fighting for his life. I don't really see a place, Nekias, for the zone, and then I want your thoughts on it after Bond. In this series, I think they can get away with it a little bit, maybe when Horford's on the floor and Tatum's not, if it's just Jaylen Brown. But at that point, I just think you just play Love a little higher, just play drop and live with the results. I just think Boston's shown you for 2 consecutive years that they know how to solve it, different variations of Miami zone. And that's kind of where I'm at. I think they showed you. Guys?
Oh, I thought you said after Bond.
No, I said Bond after
me.
you. Bond after you. My bad. That was
my fault.
That was Drew Holiday. That was really Drew Holiday level decision making by a podcast host.
Oh no, it's all good. I'm probably right there with you, especially with the way that Boston spreads the floor. Like, they're just going to play lineups that are going to have 5 shooters out there, and not just that. I think back to game 1, like Peyton Pritchard hitting a deep one from like the far right hash. I'm just like, well, if you can extend it to this degree, I don't know how effective it's going to be. And to your point, G, them getting an early look in the left corner, just pushing early before they can even set up out after the press. If you can't even get set up in the zone, like, the beauty of Miami zone is their ability to match up and kind of morph midway through the possession and pass guys off. If you get to the press portion and you're already on your back foot, you're not going to be able to do it against Boston. And to circle back to the earlier conversation, you're trying to stay out of rotation against this group overall.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to rotate and close out and try to cut things off. The Heat pride themselves on being able to do it. They've been able to do so throughout the exposure era. But against a team that literally posted the best offensive rating in NBA history, you don't want them playing against a scrambling defense 5 seconds into a possession. So I don't know how much zone you get outside of the random, start of second quarter. Let's just make sure you can't run whatever set you
there's
going to
be a fourth quarter where they just bust it out to start and see, like, fuck it. Let's see. Mm-hmm. I think, but really, I'm unmoved. Bon?
I'd be fine with that. I think I agree. And if you are sticking to the man principles that you showed in game 2, then your need for an explicit zone, I think, maybe kind of dwindles a little bit. If you're already committed to kind of being in the gaps and playing in a space, in a zone, even if it's a little offset from your man, then you don't necessarily have the need to, like, go flat out into their, like, 1-1-2-1 or their strange 2-2-1. You and your camera is bothering. It's like I'm trying to no,
be honest
you're
with
completely
you,
fine. That's me.
Full disclosure, I just put it. My back has been hurting for days, and I just put yoga blanket under me to give myself a little cushion.
No,
which made me taller, which made me have to adjust the.
I like it. You feel better
inside production. People.
Your posture feel better.
Yeah,
you feel
good?
Good.
Actually. Yeah.
No. Yeah, I don't know that they necessarily need to if they continue to be in the gaps the way that they have been or that they were for game 2.
Impress all around. Classic Eric Spoelstra game 2. Let's move into their offense a little bit, and then we'll get into kind of where we think the series is going to go from here. I thought Tyler in particular was attacking the gaps in drop. They weren't settling for pull-ups. They were okay. I think they looked at it similarly how they look at Milwaukee, where they're not, early on in the saga between the Heat and the Bucks. I think they were really looking for those handoffs off the drop and those pull-up off the pick and roll. But I thought lately that Jimmy in particular has been kind of eating at that space and drop, going at taking that hard dribble, making that drop man have to step up, making that guy on the strong side corner have to come in or whatever. They're forcing help. And I thought Tyler took a page out of that book and went hard, 2 dribbles, make sure that if Jalen's in the corner, has to come help, make sure that make Porzingis defend. And they were getting Boston in rotation almost every time. They got good. All those threes came out of Tyler Herro. I can't believe I'm saying this. Dribble penetration.
I was really impressed by the floor game from Tyler Herro in this one. Like a stat that I dropped on the latest episode of Dunker Spot. This was, factoring in for volume, this was the most effective pick and roll game in Tyler Herro's career.
Yeah.
39 picks, over 1.7 points per possession, featuring a Tyler Herro pick and roll. Absurd numbers on absurd volume for him. And him being able to chew up the space, like you said, G, and not just settle for pull-ups. Let me engage Kristaps Porzingis. Let me make sure he has to make a decision, and then make passes from there. If we're getting extra help from Boston for whatever reason, you mentioned the strong side corner. I'm really curious to see how Boston adjusts in game 3 with some of the strong side corner help we saw from them. I think part of it was just baked in. We'll help off of this guy because we don't care if he shoots. But if that guy's making shots, do you go back to more of your traditional principles? We don't help off of this side.
Duncan was the only guy that I felt that Boston had you don't leave him. Because Tyler was either on ball or moving. Duncan was the only dude, because Caleb, Hyman, to kind of your point, Highsmith, they're like, I don't care if that guy is open. Duncan was the only dude.
Yeah, so I do wonder if Boston is just going to press the do better button there in terms of the nuance, or if they're actually going to shift things on that front. Because if Tyler is going to chew up this space and actively engage Kristaps in that drop, now you're opening up the pocket pass beside him to Bam. You have kickouts and more help comes in. I think there's room for tinkering there on that front. And then beyond that, one of my favorite game within the games, particularly in the second half, was Boston saying, we need to turn this dude's water off. Drew, you just need to hound this guy. And Tyler countering with, actually, Haywood, could you come set a screen for me?
Yes. It's in my notes, the Tyler Haywood 2-man. Fantastic.
Shout out to Tim.
Yeah, I was like, there was one stray half court screen from Haywood in the fourth quarter. I was like, okay, we were really playing with this. But no, he was very intentional. Let me call up Sam Hauser earlier. I think I sent this clip to you, G. But bring up, let's get Sam Hauser in the action, and then let's go into this pick and roll. There's one with, he called DeLon right up to screen for him. Let's see if we can get a switch here. We do, and I like that they went early enough that they have time to explore it. Now we can go Bam in the pick and roll with Al Horford in the drop. We can play out of this. You get a DeLon right 3 out of that, and then a little bit later, it's the same gambit with Haywood Highsmith screening. Let's get Jason Tatum in here. We feel like you will probably switch this one, and you do. Now you get Bam into the pick and roll. I like the cut from Haywood Highsmith. He was very good at adjusting there later in the fourth quarter, because there was one possession, I want to say a little early in the fourth quarter, the Heat tried that same gambit with Tyler calling for a screen, and they gave the switch, but then Drew just stayed at the left wing. It's like, no, you don't have to deal with me. And you get a turnover on that possession. So I love immediately after that, Haywood Heiss was like, no, actually, I'm going to dive down to the dunker spot. Hello, free promo. He dives to the dunker spot. Drew has to release, and then you open up that space to get that pick and roll to go. So, I just love how intentional they were for making the job easy for Tyler. And to Tyler's credit, when he saw space in the drop, he explored, he knew what to do with it from there.
They don't need Jimmy to be the only dude to attack Boston Smalls. And I thought in game 1, they let Pritchard get away with time on the floor. They let Hauser get away with time on the floor. And I understand that for Miami baked in, it was, okay, Jimmy, find the smallest dude, put him in the blender. And that wasn't, Bam is not that kind of guy, which I was impressed with what he did against Kristaps and size in general, but we'll get into that a little later. But I like that Herro's like, I'm going to make you guys double. And they did a lot of guard screens. When Boston pressed, they had Duncan screen off for Jaime or for Tyler, whoever. They made sure that a guard was screening, and they would kind of do it really high to give them space. I thought Miami was very prepared for a lot of what they did, especially in pick and roll, and they got all those guys in rotation. They were moving the ball, I think, as well as you can hope. And, we'll talk about other stuff later, but Bond, it's just their pick and roll game was, I think, the best I've seen all year. I mean, not just Tyler's, but just in general.
Yeah, to what you just said, I appreciated how high it began. So not only the guard to guard stuff, but it was, beginning practically a foot past half court, and that allows so much more space to like really be intentional about like shearing and stretching and pulling apart kind of the middle of the defense. And Kai, as you talked about being interested in what they do with, I guess, their low man strong side help game 3. I'm really interested in what they do with their nail help, because in game 1, Jason was like super intent on like tagging the roller, like I'm jamming Bam kind of on this roll. I saw Derek White getting there a lot, and then game 2, accompanying how high out Miami was setting the initial screen, there was much less of that. Like and I don't know if this is a faction of guys that kind of started hitting shots or just I can't remember the timing within the game that it happened and kind of maybe what forced it, but changing the way that you guard Bam, like the depth that you let him get on his roll, it changes the geometry for Tyler. It changes, kind of the geometry for everyone else, kind of around the arc. I think the second clip that you just showed, Nekias, like Jalen, so they get into the screen or whatever. Jalen, kind of pushes over. Jalen offers some nail help from the weak side, but Caleb does a good job at kind of like circling back and making sure that he has kind of a relief lane. There were situations in game 1 where they got kind of like good penetration and had shooting spots and opportunities. One, they did like a lot of overpassing and kind of over dribbling, but I think they also didn't necessarily like comport themselves in the best ways on the court to kind of take advantage of some of the stuff. So given the way that Boston changed what they did defensively, I do like the way that Miami came out. And Tyler just has the ability, like that's just talent, to be able to command a dribble. He's jerky enough that he has a good start and stop to him, but he's fluid enough that he can kind of get in the crevices and pull defensive attention in more ways than kind of just a straight line back and forth. And then he pulls it, holds it well, moves it. And that was beautiful to see from. That's the every other Tyler Herro game where that I have no real interest in trying to get him anywhere else.
The other thing, they would kind of run him off screens, which I liked, especially if Holiday or Derek White was on him. They'd like kind of run him off a screen and then run him into the flow from that into the action. And I like that. And I like his off-ball movement. There were a lot of possessions where he was like kind of weaving in like the middle of the floor, like kind of
did that.
Bam and back. Yeah.
And like the Bam step ups, they just flowed nicely. Bam is able to open up, and then you saw Bam's little midi and the deck kind of come back on. Like when they're flowing, it looks nice.
Vaughn, did you see that play? I think it was Jovic and Bam. It was like a 4-5 pick and roll, and Tyler was kind of slithering between them, and he pops out into the wing and gets wide open for it. He pops out, and then Derek White's coming, but Tyler's had this guy rocking back and forth, like, yo-yoing him through screens, gets him on the end, kind of gets him off balance and gets a big shot. And I'm like, that's the ideal. Trae Young, are you watching? Like, that's what you want.
Do that.
Like the guys, you laugh, but it's like, that's the kind of off-ball stuff that could make him this kind of player. Not that he'll be like a number one on a great offense, but a kind of guy that you can really rely on in the playoffs. I mean, they needed him, to create when he sat, for as well as I thought Jaime played, those lineups without Bam, and we could talk about that right now. Those lineups without Bam or Tyler, offense was very hard to come by. I thought Miami was very fortunate. Jaime hit a bunch of big shots that came off offense. Caleb hit some. Duncan missed, I think, every good look he had in that stretch. And it was rough, and I don't know if they can keep doing that.
God bless Duncan. That's the only commentary I have.
He's trying. He's trying his little heart out.
He's trying.
I don't know if those lineups can survive, Nekias. I don't. On offense, it's tough.
No, it very much feels like you need, barring injury or foul trouble, you need one of Bam or Tyler on the floor at all times. You just need someone that can operate as an engine for you. Or I guess like two of Tyler, Jaime, Bam on the floor at all times. You can help it. Because otherwise, like, you're just asking for Boston to just switch everything that you do. and muck up driving lanes when they have the help points out there. They have to figure out something. Like, ideally, do we have an update on Terry Rozier at all?
No.
Like,
He said he worked out. He practiced yesterday. I heard that he was on track for Saturday. I don't know. But
how do we, when he comes back, I mean, there's a lot of questions about, I mean, he certainly helped these lineups and he'll help their scoring. I worry about, I think if he comes, Nekias, and we talked about this last night on Hangover Time, that has to come from Duncan minutes, not from DeLon minutes. I think DeLon should be playing. I think they need him. DeLon closed yesterday. I think that if they're going to win, they're not talking about let's take a game. In that locker room, they're talking about what can we do to win this series. For them to win this series, they need to be a defense-first team that gets enough offense on the floor, and I think DeLon is more critical to that than their other guards. So I think Duncan might have to find his way out of the rotation with Rozier returns.
I don't disagree with that. I just watching how Miami has handled DeLon's minutes this year, it feels like the more likely thing to happen will be you just take the DeLon minutes, Duncan, you have a short hook, and then maybe we see DeLon in a second half type beat. I don't think I would agree with that, but like I feel like that would be how I feel like that's how Miami would handle it, just based on what we've seen so far this year. But I'm more inclined to agree with you though. Like I think if Duncan doesn't have it offensively, Boston is just going to poke at Duncan.
And he's hurt. Like he said, I will not move well until I get vacation.
I get a break. Yeah. Like he's compromised on top of that. So like I'm with you. I think it should come from the Duncan minutes. But I think because of some of the drop looks that you're seeing, how important the 3-point shooting is, and again, just the history of how they've handled that, I would imagine that it comes from DeLon first, which while we're here, I had tip to not only the defense from him, I'm so glad that DeLon Wright is taking shots from behind the arc in rhythm. Yes. The catch and holds, the record scratches have been far and few between over the last week and a half. I'm so happy that he's taking these shots.
Oh, can he get up with Caleb and work on some of that? Because that hit just hit you, boy. And it still it went in the other day.
Yeah, we need a separate pod to discuss the Caleb jumper from this year. Because I thought it was smooth and it wasn't smooth anymore.
It smoothed out. It was choppy and then it smoothed out for a bit and then it just got right back bumpy.
Was the jumper on probation? Is that the bit?
I don't know.
Is it just?
I don't know.
I'm doing good for a little bit.
It was looking good, and then I got a text yesterday from Jack Alfonso, and he says, "Is Caleb's jumper the ugliest looking one that goes in at a relatively reasonable rate?" And I'm like, Marion and Noah are up there, but I think he's there.
Marion's wasn't even like Marion's was ugly, but at least it was fluidly ugly. Like Caleb's looks painful. Like
Caleb looks like he dropped frames. It looks like you're playing an online game and you drop frames.
I was about to say he buffers.
Yeah, he
buffers. Literally buffering.
Got yellow connection.
but goes in at a decent clip. Hey, I guess if it's not broke, don't fix it right now.
Chat says Caleb's jumper wears a mood ring.
Oh wait.
Jesus. So
that's amazing.
What were we saying? Oh, we're talking about those lineups. Yeah, Jaime played great, obviously in both games, and he kind of becomes a primary handler in those minutes. Let's assume we don't know what Rozier's update is. Obviously, that he's going to change so much for them, and we'll talk about that in potential adjustments. But Jaquez kind of became their ball handler in those minutes without Bam, and really their offense without Bam and Tyler. And I thought he looked good. I think, again, the guard screens, just his willingness to go downhill, to kind of attack those gaps. Again, the shooting with him in rhythm, all that, I just don't know. He's the guy I'm most worried about it being sustainable for. He could get hot and he could stay hot, but a lot of those looks he hit during those stretches, I was like, it was those, thank God he hit that, because they had absolutely nothing, and you're kind of captaining this sinking ship, and they hit it. Listen, and I think, Bond, you've been coached by a lot of coaches. Like, they'll probably tell you, we just got to you hit 1 or 2 threes, and that gets you through a 5-minute stretch. And I'm sure that they think about it that way. We just got to buy time. But I worry about that. I worry about those minutes because Bam can't play the whole game. Nico started to get back up 5 minutes. We'll talk about the Love aspect of this in a second, but their bench, particularly the longevity, is going to be, I think, a question mark in the series.
Probably. And okay, bunch of thoughts. So the ball handling of it all, the Jaime, Duncan, Kevin, DeLon, and like Haywood, those lineups, I saw Duncan initiating far too much with someone who wasn't Bam. And so you're putting Jaime in the corner, or you're putting Jaime at the break, or maybe you're putting him at one of the 45s and he's has space to kind of attack, secondary closeouts and stuff. But it's interesting that the sustainability of his jumper is the one that kind of gives you, kind of most concern or whatever. Because I honestly feel a little bit of the opposite. He's got a great build. The form is fine. Like, I feel like it's a lot of reps with him and a lot of maybe there's kind of like some mental stuff. Not even like stuff, like maybe just, just quick bouts of nerves or whatever. Like I don't feel fear when I think about the ability, Jaime's ability to knock down, decently open. They talked all that stuff about, we thought the closeouts were decent. They set a Boston record for like the most wide open threes.
Tom
giving up.
Sent that out. That was really funny.
And so I don't, Jaime is not someone that I'm worried about under those circumstances. It's the bobbled ones where he's having to maybe like scoop it up off the ground and get into a shot, or if it's coming a bit closer to an off the dribble type of thing. But catch and shoot stuff, I don't really fear, kind of much from him. And I would like to see him in positions to initiate more when it's that group. I thought that there was space. I guess, we can get into Nikola as the 5 or whatever, but I thought there was space to even have him present just as a body and someone you can put in the middle and someone that can hub and someone that, anticipates well. He was defending well. I thought that there was space. If you're not going to have Bam and Tyler, if you're going to have a bunch of Bam and Tyler list lineups, then either, I guess put the ball more diligently in Jaime or DeLon's hands. Don't give me like a bunch of Duncan trying to, get past Derek and get past Jason. If you have, partial playmakers. So
I'd be okay with it if he was healthy. He's just not, because
who?
I mean,
Jaime?
No, Duncan. Like, I'd be okay with him.
Yes, I'm gonna say Jaime's looked good since he's got back.
Jaime. Jaime's been. Yeah. And again, he was Duncan, the one.
Right.
I agree with you that in those lineups, Jaime has. I do think Duncan's the best passer in those units, and he still is. So I understand.
Sure, but if I'm not creating anything to because you're pass through or get into, then I'm just passing around the arc.
Because he just can't beat anybody, and even when he would, they're catching up from behind. Like Porzingis had that block on him when he got to the basket and stuff off those cuts. I think they gave him the run because he kind of buoyed them during that stretch where they didn't have ball handlers and he was the only one, and I think he has sure hands that aren't going to turn it over. So I understand that from the coaching staff, but. Jaime just gave way better offense and just a more sure pick and roll handler. I'm just a little worried about the standstill shooting, but hopefully Rozier can come back, and that's going to open another can of worms. Let's get into Miami's center stuff, Nekias. So no Love in the second half. I don't know if that's going to hold for the rest of the series. They played some Jovic as a backup 5, which is really what Eric Spoelstra's always wanted to do. And really what he always likes to do. He likes their.
We got here hook or crook. He said, God damn it.
He's like, we made it. We made it, Nico.
Shit.
Dreams do come true, kids. And I thought it looked good. I wonder if Love's going to get some run, particularly in the Horford lineups. I think he could play some there. Do you think we've seen the last of Love this series? How do you kind of foresee them going forward? I think I said earlier, if they're going to play Love, I'd like it to be in drop, and I think just play him a little higher and then just make sure that your help with the nail and your backline stuff is sure.
I don't think we've seen the last of Kevin Love because I do think he just has that value as a willing shooter up top, someone you can run your offense through up top. You can get into some of the elbow stuff. You can get into the delay stuff. And ultimately, if we're just talking about playoff level trust, Like we've seen good Kevin Love, we've also seen bad Kevin Love. But in terms of, we know this is your coverage, this is what you're going to do. Everyone behind you knows what you're going to do, and we know how to react based on how well you do it. I don't think Spo is just going to go completely away from Kevin Love. To the Nico point, though, one, I'm glad that they've gotten here because I am excited about the young man. Two, I think based on the game plan we saw in game 2 and how switchier the Heat got compared to game 1, if you're going to rock with Nico at the 5, like you can still maintain that, especially if you're going with him versus, the other second units. Yeah. Like I don't like Boston isn't afraid to dump it down to Al Horford if he gets a wing or something on him, but Miami does such a good job at fronting, and we're getting into the overall how quickly is Boston getting into their offense? Are you bleeding clock? Is the tempo right, etc.? And I think that kind of plays into Miami's hands. So like I think that makes sense to go that route. Nico has to continue to shoot. He has to continue to drive, which brings me to question for the both of you, because as you were talking about some of the bench lineups without Tyler and Bam on the floor, Nico low-key ran, I think, 8 pick and rolls in game 2. Mm-hmm. Tyler screened for him for 4 of those.
Yes.
Is the answer just let's go Nico, Duncan Robinson pick and roll in some of these lineups so we don't have Jaime doing everything?
We look at us. We're here.
By hook or by crook, baby. We got here.
Defensively, we can trust them on a Derek White-esque island here defensively, and maybe we can, kind of get into the final offensive things that you think about with him, guys. I think that's fun. I think, defensively, him at the 5, like you said, they had the ability to get switchier, and he maintained. And they also hedged really well in a way that I thought that, was pretty cool.
Please mention that. You tweeted about it, and I thought that was really good.
So not like your typical hedge where the defensive 5, gets all the way up, gets kind of perpendicular to the ball handler, gets chest to the sideline, back to the opposite sideline. They did a lot of flat hedging, which is not quite coming all the way up to the level, but rising higher than you would in a drop, and kind of maintaining this as parallel as possible arrangement with both baselines. And that allowed them to kind of cushion and absorb the blow of whatever drive was coming off of that. And the original dude got back really well. Nico flat hedged a couple times. Caleb was the one that got back. Caleb flat hedged really well a couple times. Duncan was the one who kind of recovered and got back in front of theirs. And it allowed them to also contain the slip easier. Like it's easier to slip with a traditional hedge with like the L-ing off of the ball handler and then the screener's defender. And kind of a flat hedge situation, the one doing the hedge is able to kind of corral the ball handler, but also there's space to kind of tag the roll. And their low man, Tyler, a lot of times, Tyler's defensive activity has been great. And I want to shout that out, and I want him to get, his tulips for that, because it's been quick, it's been pronounced, it's been disciplined, it's been aware, it's known what it's needed to done, and has done it at like an energetically high level. So that's been really fun. So all that to say, I think that there's space to get away with more Nicole at the 5. To Nekias' point, I do think that there's still just an intrinsic value to Kevin Love, like you said, being willing to shoot, but also being willing to like lay some wood down under, and, post guys and rebounder, someone to put on Al. And so, maybe you see diminish or a smaller Kevin role, but I don't see Spo going completely away from having him in the game. I think he's someone that he trusts too much. And to your point, Nekias, you just feel too comfortable. He's a bomb. Like, I think you kind of just need some of that out there every now and then.
I really like their inverted actions, and I think that getting back they don't have it without Jimmy, and I think Nico is the way to get that element in their offense back, and I am a fan. He has to be a little bit careful passing off of it, because I think Boston, and it's funny because I was texting with Tiff, and we were talking about just Nikola, and I said I think for now his limiter is going to be his playmaking, like how, because I don't view him as a guy. He certainly has more ball handling potential than Bam, but he's not going to be Lamar Odom, right? And I think that he can run pick and roll for them in the half court. I think he can bring the ball up and push the pace. I think passing off of that, because he could pass. Like, he had that really nice ball that he lofted over the defense to find Caleb Martin off a swing in the right corner in the third quarter, I believe. And he makes some passes that you get impressed with. It's the stuff off the dribble that I'm worried about. So I think when Miami can kind of get Smalls in the action and make sure that they have like shooters that Boston respects, I think they can kind of get him into the spaces that they need to create and score enough. I've been so impressed with him on defense, kind of just containing what he's done on offense for them. They need as many ball handlers as they can, considering they're out Rozier and Jimmy, and really and Duncan to an extent, who's just not the same guy. They need all hands on deck, and he is one of the hands on deck that they need very badly. And I've been just so impressed with him. I mean, Bon, you were right. You were right. I see what you saw that I was very unmoved by early, but he has just really blossomed. And I thought, kind of coming into the playoffs, I thought the two guys most likely to lose their minutes were going to be Jaime and Nico. Jaime, just because he looked like he was kind of fading by the end of the season. But I mean, really, the two Toronto little mini series and the playing games, he's been excellent. I don't know if there's anything else you guys wanted to get into of game 2 before we kind of move into adjustments for game 3.
3 very quick things. 1, hashtag respect Bond. 2, as you were talking about the flat hedges, it was so funny watching Miami kind of nail that. And then the next game was Thunder Pelicans, and they start with like CJ trying to do it and JV trying to do it, and the Thunder got whatever they wanted to. So it was cool to get the contrast there. And then 3, as I was thinking about like what G said as with Jovic as a passer, like I agree, he's a much better standstill passer. Like I don't know if it's a hot take. I feel like he's a better standstill passer than Bam is, honestly. Some of the movement stuff and some of knowing when to like flip and do, hit guys on the cut and stuff like that. Like Bam has a little bit more nuance, but just pure, I'm standing at the top of the key, I can hit you. Like Jovic is already up there. So I'm with you though. The movement stuff is where it gets kind of funny with him. It's kind of where the regular season reps matter. This is where you let him play through some stuff. To your defense point, this is why you let him guard JV and guard Zion in the same game. You let him take his lumps. Now you can tell Boston series he's holding up a little bit better against drivers you wouldn't expect him to. And then one last thing on the bench units and some of the usage there. As I was thinking about Jovic as a standstill passer and them just trying to generate offense without Tyler and Bam on the floor. Mm-hmm. Off the top of your head, did they go flex with Jaime at all?
I don't feel like I saw any flex actions. I saw like there was a bunch of post splits. There was a bunch of like real high up post splits. I don't know that I located like any flex patterns.
Yeah, because I was thinking about like the Kings game in the regular season where the fourth quarter was just Kevin Herter, get over here, come have fun. And I'm just like, they could just do that with Jovic at the top of the key, have Duncan screen for Jaime, and let's have some fun. But that was just top of mind there.
That is fun. I don't go ahead, G.
I was gonna put a ball on it to move on. So if you had something.
Oh yeah, no. The last thing I'll say about game 2, in addition to the gapping kind of principles and it disallowing, some of those threes, I think it forced tougher shots, particularly from the baseline. Like game 1, Jason got a couple of like good baseline spins. We were late. The low man was kind of late. But I don't know. I just feel like them going with how they did in game 2. I saw a lot more of Jason kind of on the right, extended post a bit and wanting to probe left and wanting to probe middle and kind of just and then settling, for some turnarounds. There was one possession, Jaylen Brown was in the extended post, like off of the right side. And so he's backing down, the ball's in his left hand. And Bam would be the one kind of like shrinking the floor. And he like aborted that mission entirely.
So, I love that possession.
And then try to either do a turnaround also or like just move it. So I think, I don't know. I wonder what they do with it. And then I guess we'll get into some, getting into game 3 stuff. But I was really pleased with the execution. Miami's defensive scheme was executed well and with high energy and was neat. Like it wasn't sloppy. And I think that was like really warms my heart.
Shout out to Caleb Martin, who was just unreal on defense as a helper, as all his rotations, the way he's kind of shading over was Tatum. He was just everywhere on the floor. And I just think, and Nekias and I talked about this pre-show, that guy has been so up and down. But that's why you don't trade him, because what he's given you has just been, I mean, forget the offense, whatever. The offense is the offense, and it's very funny that he keeps doing this. He can't keep getting away with it, .gif. But on defense, bro, you can't. The guy, he's such a Heat guy too. And I've said such a Heat guy because this was such a Heat win. I gotta be honest, man, they gotta try to keep him, because he fits the identity of who they are so well, and he plays really hard. And bro, he hit a shot when they booed him. That's so badass. Come on, dude. They were like, they couldn't even finish the boos. They couldn't get all the onomatopoeia out. He just swished. Come on, man.
Yeah, he's a gamer, and I agree.
He's a gamer. Do we have the Caleb Dig clip?
I do. That's why. Listen, transition.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about right there. This is why G is the best of the best. We get the Jason Tatum touch. We get a pick and roll. We get a switch from Nico and Caleb Martin.
Yeah,
he's just insane.
He was doing that all night.
All night. He almost laid himself down. It's like he almost slipped here. Like he was so ready to get in there. I loved it.
And that's funny because that's one of the harder commits that they did to a double.
Yeah.
In the game. But like, what's the clock at? The clock was at 6 seconds. You know what I mean? That's okay. That's when you do it. You know,
right?
Because you know that there's only one rotation that you got to hit after that.
Yep.
And that pass, Caleb, listen, he makes it. That's not a great pass, and Bam gets out. And if
that's all you need. The help from Caleb was so good that people thought it was zone. Like that's.
Oh yeah, that was the tweet that you said. Yeah. My favorite. People insisting in your mentions, that's zone, dude, and you're just like, okay, I don't know what to say.
Like I'm not about to argue. Like,
I'm not about to go back and forth with you people.
If you believe it's zone, mama named it zone, I'm gonna call it zone. That's fine.
Do people come in your playbacks and like contest what you say?
No, we don't get much of that.
That's good. Well, it's a vibe, but don't ruin the vibe.
It's not like I can't be wrong, so I'm not, not
right.
It is funny,
but it's just like, no, this is, if you watch the beginning of the game, these were the matchups, and you can tell that it's not. They're not passing off anyone. This is a switch because these were the matchups and they're switching across the board. One last thing.
These are switches and not pass offs. What's happening in the interior is not what you think is happening.
one would think. And then one thing before we get into the Boston adjustments, because we've talked a lot about the closeouts from Miami. 60 closeout attacks for Boston in game 1, 1.6 points per possession on those trips. In game 2, 35 closeout attacks, down to 1.3. Which both of those are still high numbers, but you shaved a lot of the efficiency down, and you also nearly cut the closeout attacks in half from game 1 to game 2. So airtight game plan for Miami.
Eric freaking Spoelstra. And that's why, listen, and I think this is like relevant to like what I think how Miami believes that they're going to go forward in terms of building their team. And I believe it was Ethan that said this. Look at where they've invested. They've invested in scouting, they've invested in coaching, and they believe in Eric Spoelstra, and they believe in the guys that they kind of find and develop. And look at who we're talking about today. It's Caleb Martin, who is a two-way. It's Niko Jovic, who they got with a late first-round pick. It's Jaime, who was a very surprise pick for them where they picked. It's all these guys. It's Haywood Highsmith, right? And it's again the eternal story that keeps on happening. It's really, they can't keep getting away with it. But that's what they invested in. And they paid Eric Spoelstra the most money that anybody had paid a coach at the time, because that's what they believe is critical to their identity and to win games. So shout out to Coach Spo, who was very prepared and again, keeps that game 2 record when he loses game 1 absolutely ridiculous.
Wait, what's that record?
I believe, isn't it like 9-1 or something? That he's like 9-1 after he loses game 1.
With what I felt about what I said earlier, like, give him game 1. I know what you're doing now. I'm about to,
No, I'm sorry. It's 9-2. I believe the 2 are losing the Milwaukee game 2 and losing his second year as head coach in Boston after Udonis Haslem and Kevin Garnett got in a fight, and then
That's
Ray Allen.
overwhelmingly positive.
Ray Allen ruined my life. I actually went to that game 3 where Paul Pierce hit the game winner over Darrell Wright because Dwayne Wade rolled his ankle to play before. That was the quietest, saddest drive home my family and I have ever had.
Man.
I've been in less hostile car rides when my parents were going through a divorce. That's how sad we all were. Let's talk about that's divorce kid humor. We all, if you know, you know. Let's talk about precinct. Let's talk about game 3 adjustments, and let's talk about it first from Boston side, and then we'll kind of talk about what Miami could tinker. Guys, I actually think one of the things that Boston can do is I think they can play their drop a little higher. I think they're just giving Tyler too much space, and I think that you got to make him beat you off the dribble. And I think you can play Porzingis and Al a little higher. I even think low key you can switch that sometimes and make Tyler beat you, because I don't know. I've watched this for a long time. I wouldn't feel confident if Tyler pulls Porzingis out and isolates him. I'm not feeling great about that. So I think that's like one adjustment that they can do other than the Nekias quote from earlier, the be better button. Let's talk about defense and we'll go into offense. So that's like the first one that I think that they could do, particularly kind of adjusting the screens higher. Where do you fall on that, Nekias?
I think you have room. I probably lean more on the switch front than the play higher, because ultimately if you're still giving like Tyler 2 on the ball, like Miami is still able to play out of that a little bit, especially if we're basing off of how Tyler
agree
game 2.
Yes.
So I would probably lean more the switch part, just because they don't have the explosive guys off the bounce. And you can probably live with that a little bit more, especially if Boston goes into if they also go into like the matchup playing back that they just have done all year long. Hey, we're going to put Kristaps on Caleb Martin to start the game. And now we're going to put this wing on Bam. And now if you try to run something, we just have a whole lot of fun here. And we can switch this, and then we can scram out of it if we need to, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I think the switching is probably going to be the thing that Boston would lean more into. Just pulling this up very quickly. Kristaps did not switch any picks in game 2. He switched 2 in game 1. So that's probably something they can lean on a little bit more if they want to.
Bon, where do you stand on kind of where Boston could go from here on their pick and roll coverage?
I feel you on bringing the drop a little higher. I think I do agree, though, that Tyler has such command of the ball. If he's able to, continue to have that level of command, I think you are maybe still at the mercy of what he wants to do. And if he continues to make good decisions.
What a world.
Yeah, man, everyone is growing up like in the blink of like 3.5 eyes. Like,
I've been doing the show with you for 4 years now. I cannot believe we, of all people, us, are talking about Tyler this way. Remarkable. I'm proud of the boy. I'm proud of him.
Tyler has always had talent. I just have disliked a lot of what I felt coming. I just have disliked a decent amount, and the way that he was used, and kind of just, all of these things. I've never denied Tyler's talent, and I have repeatedly said Tyler makes a difference. I don't know that we beat Denver. I think Tyler does, though, make a difference in the Denver series, and I definitely think Tyler makes a difference in that 2020 Boston series that we lost in 7. Like, because he's talented and he has a particular skill set that is enabling him to operate kind of in the interior of a defense, and we can move all around it. So I don't know. I'm cool with bringing it up a little bit more. Probably would switch more. Again, I wonder what they do with regards to jamming the roll. I wonder if they treat direct center middle ball screens differently than they kind of treat some of the side pick and roll types of things. But I think that they have space to tighten up or to counter with particularly for me, with their elbow help guy, their nail guy. What does that do?
They gotta like prevent the strong side rotation, because I just think that's where Miami was feasting more than anything. And I think that pass is too easy for Herro. And I think Tyler's a good passer, but I think that
the pass to where?
To the strong side corner, like when they help whoever that guy is, whether that's Jalen. It was Jalen a lot. Have to come rotate or Porzingis sometimes. I just think that was too easy for Miami. And I think if you're Boston, you have to make a limited offense. work a little harder. I will not go as far as to say they should start switching off-ball stuff, but Miami's off-ball movement and all their motion stuff was really how this was party like it's 2020, baby. We were moving left and right. It was an East-West bonanza. And
I think you also got to stop giving up rejects. And I don't know how you do that. Tyler likes to reject the screen a lot, and I think that throws you in.
Nico did it a lot.
Nico did it a lot, and Jaime
I want
did
Nico
it a
to
lot.
just use it one time.
Jaime like vacated the corner, came up like he was about to, kind of set a regular screen, and then like did not. I was like, oh, this is fun. And then as the handler just rejected it and just kind of went back left from where he came. So there's space for Boston.
Dwayne Wade had left the legacy, lineage.
There you go.
It's in the blood. It's in the water.
Absolutely lineage. I don't know if you had any thoughts on kind of the strong side help that Boston and how they can kind of clean that up, or if it's just containing.
That feels more containing than anything. I think Boston wasn't as tidy as they were in game one, containing the ball, and then you throw in the scheme stuff on top of that. It just led to a lot of open looks. Like the question I posed to Steve earlier, and I posed it to y'all, with them helping off of Caleb, helping off of Jaime, et cetera, like it makes sense to do that. Just playing the percentages there, it did lead to a lot of comfort with those guys taking open shots. Do you think Boston should alter their approach at all, or do you just think they just continue to play the odds there?
I am such a non-believer in this offense that I'm being real, bro. I've watched this shit for years. Let me tell you something. Do you know what it's like to tell like a date, can't do that day, gotta watch Heat Hornets, and then watch the Heat.
I do actually
score 90 points. We know, and I'm particularly intimate with this brand of cratastic offense. So excuse me if I am like, I just think Boston should be like, I fucking dare you. You want to try to finish at the rim? You were like, all of these dudes can't finish. I dare you get to the rim, finish. Maybe that's crazy. I don't know.
I think I agree. Close out, make them beat you. Like, I don't know that we have enough people that's like splitting defenders, kind of crashing in, going to the rim.
If I'm Missoula, I go to the locker room, I go, those dudes suck. You gotta make them. You gotta make them prove that they don't. And one thing we're not gonna do is overhelp and respect. I talk about this a lot, and I think everybody makes fun of me. I play competitive Super Smash Bros. Melee, and one of the things that when you use good characters, there's not a lot of balance in terms of like the good characters versus the bad characters. And sometimes when you play bad characters, you can get in your head and you respect their moves too much, and then you have to remember, wait a second. That's Dr. Mario. I don't have to respect anything you do because I play Fox. And that's sometimes the game plan. And I think the Celtics need to realize that they're playing against Dr. Mario. And Dr. Mario may have pills and make crouch cancel down smash and do all these little things. But at the end of the day, I dare you to edge guard. And I know that doesn't mean anything to a lot of people, but if you did, that's something. And I just think that Boston has to make Miami prove that, hey, can you actually score? Can you finish oversized? Can you beat guys off the dribble one-on-one?
Because I believe you can shoot. I believe you kind of been streaky, struggling, whatever. I believe you can shoot. I don't know that I believe that all of y'all are getting to the basket off of this like deep left corner and just having ultimate success and just having play the kickouts, play the rotations.
Can Bam shoot that? I mean, the guys, listen, the midi, some of those, Edris Bryant, like some of those, like that was beautiful. I'm sorry. That's like, I've seen that game once every 2 months. I love Bam. And again, I'm on a be Heat fan, rah, but we're being the analytical real show today. If I'm Boston, I'm like, all right, bet. Cool.
I was not expecting a melee reference on the pod. I should have been. Yeah, you tied that together beautifully. That was great stuff.
Thank you.
Genuinely
Why were you
great
not
stuff.
ready for that?
I didn't know that was going to be the tie-in there.
I'm gold 2 now. I've ranked up. You don't understand.
Oh, man.
I talked to Brass after the show. I have never been gold 2, and my coach and I have been working. I'm so proud of myself. I'm on my way to diamond, baby.
I love this for you.
I put the grind in.
Love this journey for you.
I know.
Go ahead,
yeah.
guys.
So bam jumpers. I just I don't know.
Ooh, but no, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because like I've been kind of going back and forth.
What are yours?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yes, I just gave mine. I'm like, what do you think Boston's tactically gonna do? Do you think they're gonna ride with that, or you think they're
What
gonna?
did Steve say? Let us
Yeah,
know.
Steve.
I think we both landed on like I don't think Boston's going to do much different there. Like at least for me, like I don't think they're going to overreact and start hard closing out on like Jaime or Caleb. Like I think
I agree.
So that's where I think it's just going to be do better button. Like okay, if you're going to short close, at least be prepared to do that. Versus like doing the short close, now your arms down, the shot's going up because you were just out of position. Like they can tighten up those margins more than let's change how we think about Caleb Barton as a shooter. Like I don't think that part though.
I think that's the one guy they should change how they feel. I'm not gonna lie.
Not that guy.
If to be honest with you, if I'm a Celtic fan, I'm like, I've fucking seen enough. If he doesn't hit another shot, if I have to defend him like he's prime Ray Allen, that's fine. Whatever. I don't think if I'm a Celtic fan, I don't know if I can handle losing to him again.
He almost won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Like that's a very funny timeline.
I think Nekias is like absolutely correct. Like, I don't know that I expect them to over rotate and change their whole defensive kind of way of thinking in a reactionary manner. I wonder if they go to some of like trying to play Miami how Miami played them. I want us to do differently on Bam ISOs. Maybe I don't want so many Bam ISOs on Al Horford. That could just be me.
I'm with you. It scares me.
I would like us to move better around them, but I've also watched like Derek and Drew turn their head to kind of take like Jaime, who's cutting from the 45. Like they have places that they can be cut from from more than one type of angle. So I don't know. I think that it's probably a lot of just, hey, do better, do cleaner, do tighter, do more connectedly. And like, stop telling me that you thought the closeouts were fine. Cause like there is tape. We have
there is film.
We saw you.
We saw you. So yeah.
Pointing at the
exciting
right
though.
Now.
I think
very exciting.
I think it's funny that you say that about Bam. We got to pivot because we're running out of time. I want to pivot to Boston offensive adjustments, and then we'll get out of here. Bam, funny that you say that about Bam because if we started the series, I would have been like, yeah, I would love Bam to ISO because I'm like, this series doesn't matter. Who gives a fuck? You're going to ISO, and if we go down with you going 7 for 25, whatever. I don't know, man. I'm feeling delusional.
Why would you come into this like that? What is
I think the consent. I don't know if you remember.
I get it.
I was not in for Nekias. Do you remember the Tyler Herro behind the back pass to the corner against the Bulls in the playing game? To I believe Caleb Martin, who hit a 3. I did not want this series so bad that when that happened, I threw my phone across the room because I was so upset that happened. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. So I just think it's remarkable how they have us believing that we're like, no, Bam, be careful. We gotta, we're trying to win this. Boston on offense, real quick. I think obviously KP has to start hitting shots over Tyler Herro.
That would be helpful.
All of the short arming, all of those can't.
I was not expecting Mavericks Kristaps.
Oh man!
Oh, we were so bad. We were so back.
Like, where is this? You just had the most efficient post up season, like the tracking era, and now Tyler Herro,
Jaime.
We all have our JJ Barea moment.
They got gold anchor now. What is happening? No,
I'm weak.
What are we doing?
I think for sure that's the one. I think Tatum as well. I think Tatum. I think if they're not going to make Tatum a passer, he needs to be. Every time he gets Nico or Tyler on the perimeter and he settled for a 3-pointer, like off standstill, huge win for Miami. I just think that's a 3 that Boston can eliminate from the diet. I know they want to get him up. That's not the good ones. And I just think anytime Jaylen Brown posts up anybody, that's a win for Miami. And I know that Jaylen, I think he's over a point per possession on post-ups. I just think against this team, you can do better. And I don't think that's good. And I think too many times it turns into a turnover. I believe Jaylen had 3 turnovers, 1 assist. That's the magic ratio for Miami for both he and Tatum. that their turnovers are either equal or lower than their assists. And also, Highsmith and Jovic outscored Porzingis and Holiday. Boston's not going to win if that's the case. Those other guys have to attack. I mean, Holiday has to be more, use his strength against Herro more. I mean, that's like one of the biggest advantages that they have is how strong Holiday is and how not strong Miami's guards are. And Jimmy Butler's not walking through that door. And I think that those adjustments that Boston has to make are very simple. I don't think there's a ton that they have to do tactically yet. I do think it's like, okay, these guys have to win these matchups because they are winnable.
Yeah. How long does yet last for you though? Like these aren't things that
one
they
more
have
game.
One more game? Okay.
Because if Miami wins game 3,
that's what I'm saying. So why
game
fuck around
4,
and like go ahead, game 4.
Bedlam in this city with
I
the
saw your
amount of
tweet.
hate that building's gonna have. I don't think anybody would want that.
No, I think you're right. I think it's our individual matchup winners go win more of your individual matchups, or the guy that you find yourself matched up against within these 24 seconds. I also feel like schematically, maybe there is some things that they can do. If Miami's going to continue, I don't know, flat hedging, maybe I don't set the screen as hard. Maybe I'm doing a lot of slipping and popping. Maybe I'm trying to see if I can get either the ball handler and or the big defense kind of backpedaling, a little lost, just get some people in some space, loosen a little bit of things up so that maybe, I don't know, I have a pitch back in the drive, or I have, some way to then kind of get into the little seams that we've created. Does Boston look to maybe kind of play off ball more, staying in their posting or isolation situations? Do they try to cut behind the Miami guards who are gapping? I think that there's very, I don't know, maybe pronounced ways that they can counter what it is that Miami did. And for me, it's about Miami. Are you positioning yourself to let them try to counter that because you know then what you want? Like, I don't know. I think that there's things that Boston can do differently outside of KP stop short arming it over, DeLon Wright and things like that. Jason, stop giving me, this standstill body wave free from the slot. Stressful. I think that there's things that both the talent and the staff can contribute to 3.
I think for me, it starts with a play like you want to win a basketball game. That would be helpful.
Yeah.
But no, in all seriousness, I think about the. But no, like I think
I said I'm a
Bond,
hater. You say it.
I respect that. I respect that. But no, Bond hit on a lot of things that I want to touch on. I guess the only other thing that I would add, there's room for Boston to drive the basketball more. Very quietly had a really effective driving game in game 2. I think there's room for that. And if you want to really play with Miami, okay, we're not doubling, but we're kind of stunting. You can kind of play with the spacing and make sure you have your best shooter one pass away from Jason Tatum or from Jaylen Brown, whoever it is, to make sure, okay, if you're sending help, like we are going to burn you with a very quick pass.
They didn't last year.
Yeah, so we can
play with adjustments. Yeah,
we can play with that. And like I sent, if you have the Tatum clip available, the secondary drive, like one thing they started the fourth quarter with.
That one? That's this one.
Yeah. So it'll be this one. So they went looked like it was basically a stagger adjacent look for Sam Hauser. Then they went to Jason Tatum. He quickly attacked off of that. And what I like, Miami's done, a lot of teams in the league will do it, where you may just see like a team have a guy bring the ball at the floor. There's a stagger on one side of the floor. They have either a really good shooter in the strong side corner on the opposite side, or like the worst shooter, so you don't get help. And the guy bringing it up just has a drive opportunity. Like the stagger is just fluff.
I lost you guys. Is it annoying if I ask you to play both of those one more time?
No,
what are you saying, guys?
Oh, but I was just saying, I like how Boston layered this to where you run an action for Sam Hauser, basically a stagger adjacent look. But the benefit of that is Boston can either get a 3-point attempt there. Again, Miami took 11 more threes in that game. Or if it doesn't work, now it is, since Jason Tatum's your second screener, he just has an isolation attempt with their best shooter one pass away from him. He can go to either direction, and you can kind of play out of that. So I think getting more looks for Jason Tatum to get downhill, making sure you're spaced in a way that if Miami's going to play with some of the stunts instead of the hard doubles. Those stunts can be problematic because we can just kick it to this guy who can really shoot. You get a really easy catch and shoot opportunity there. Or if you are now forced to stay home, we can really threaten the paint with some of these drives. We can get to the free throw line. If you're bringing that help from the opposite corner, now you're getting more into your drive and kick. And maybe that's how you can unlock some of the cleaner catch and shoot opportunities that Boston was able to generate in game one.
With that really quick, are you relying on Jason Moore in your like posting situations? Or are you wanting Jason Moore on the perimeter for kind of what you just said if you're Boston?
Probably the posting opportunities, especially with that setup. Like he could have just kind of flipped in the setup position for like a mid post opportunity if he wanted to, but he's kind of popped out to the 3-point line. But either way, it's just configuring the spacing in a way to where he has a cleaner driving lane, so you don't have like Caleb Martin position.
The other thing they can do instead of having that best shooter one away is that guy who's one away cut, and I think they did that with Horford some, where whenever if Caleb Martin is the one shading or Bam's the one shading, that guy's man can cut to the middle of the floor and they can get that pass. And then Miami now has to be in rotation. And Boston got some good looks. I think Hauser hit a 3 and somebody else hit a 3. So those are a couple of things that they can do. And I think we are also heading for kind of the tightening of the rotation. And I wonder if Pritchard is the first to get axed for Boston. We've seen that in past series. So kind of look for Boston to shorten their rotation. We have gone very long. That dinner that everyone memed me for that I was mad that I had to move to today because they had a game yesterday. It is tonight. I'm celebrating my dad's birthday belated. So I'm out. We're all out. Thank you guys for joining in chat on a 5 p.m. on a Wednesday, rush hour or whatever. If you guys work from home, appreciate y'all for riding with us. Nekias, where can they find your work? And tell people about your playback because it is actually amazing. What you and Steve are doing.
Subscribe to the Dunker Spot if you haven't already. All podcast streaming platforms. If you are more of the visual folks, our first episode of each week drops on Tuesdays on JJ Reddit's YouTube channel. So we have plays spliced in. You can laugh at Steve looking at me like I'm ridiculous when I say something he disagrees with. All the fun things. Follow me on Twitter at Nekias NBA. Unless you don't know what a zone is. In that case, stay far away from me. Beyond that,
I know. Come and let's learn the people.
Let's educate. Let's learn together.
No more learning. Just kidding. We have enough. We have enough people in the country that think that way. Anyway, watch playback. We are live every night watching the playoff games. So you can watch along with us, especially International League Pass viewers. You're just good to go. If you are domestic, you won't be able to see the screen unless you do some hashtag traveling. I can't get into what that means, but there are ways to see the screen. But more importantly, during commercial breaks, during half times, we have a second screen up, so we are able to break down some plays. And so everyone can see that. So Steve and I really dig in. We're having fun with the playoffs. So if you want to watch basketball along with us and also just hang with some cool people, come rock with us at Playback.
Immaculate vibes. Bon, where can people find you on Twitter? Because you're doing great coverage throughout the NBA playoffs for all teams, really.
Oh man, I'm just here. I'm just on Twitter.
Oh brother.
Brother.
Ooh.
I don't know what this is about.
You're one of the fucking smartest people, like working in NBA media or whatever we call what we're doing. You know, you're amazing.
Well, yes. It's like no.
Hell yeah, that's what I like to hear.
No.
NBA and W. Nobody's doing it like you.
Just basketball media. If we can get her to do more.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's a.
I mean, like I am here. Hit me up. I'm on the timeline. Siobhan Beslow, I think. I don't know if it's Siobhan B or Siobhan Beslow, but I'm there. I know what my last name is. I just don't know if that's one. But yeah, man, I'm there doing some clippity clip type things. Maybe gonna try to get an old project back up and running for the rest of this round. Don't want to commit to that. You can write that in the run to the finals.
The run to the
finals. Yeah. I got time. But yeah.
Banner number 4. Love you guys, and we'll see you. I don't think I'm potting tomorrow. So see you Saturday with Hangover Time. Bye.